Welcome to Beyond the Lab, a series by the Office of Career Development within the Biomedical Research, Education, and Training Department of the Vanderbilt University School of Medicine. My name is Kate Stewart. I'm here today with Don Wyma. He graduated in 2002 in microbiology and immunology.
That's right.
All right. So we're glad to have you back. Tell us a little bit about what you did here at Vanderbilt.
Thanks for having me. It's been great so far. So I was here as a graduate student from 97 to 2002 in Chris Aiken's lab. So all my research focused on HIV research.
Okay.
Structure, function, so it was really basic virology research.
Okay. So what did you do since then, since Vanderbilt?
Yeah, so it's been quite a ride. So leaving here in 2002, I got a postdoc fellowship at the Centers for Disease Control in Atlanta, Georgia. So that was, I wasn't sure at that point if I wanted to stay at the bench or not. But it was an opportunity to do research in a biosafety level 4 lab with Ebola, Rift Valley fever. So it was one of those unique experiences that at that time you couldn't do many places in the world. Mm-hmm. So it was like a theme of an opportunity that was presented, and went to Atlanta for a year and a half, and then ended up moving from there to the Department of Defense and doing defense intelligence work. And that took me all over the place, from technology forecasting to avian influenza work to going to Afghanistan for 6 months. So it was quite a ride. Yeah. And then ended up coming back to the DC area and worked for the Director of National Intelligence, and then back at the Pentagon for the Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence. So each step along the way, it's been really interesting and different. And then in 2010, I moved into the private sector, consulted for 2 years at a small firm, and then now I work in the pharmaceutical industry at AbbVie. I'm a program manager there and manage some of our external collaborations. Okay,
so what does that look like? Like, what does your daily, work life look like?
Right. So I do program management and project management. So a lot of what's done is making things happen, right? So there's a lot going on, a lot of different projects, and as a project manager, a lot of what I do is facilitate the experts who are doing what they're doing, help that get through the system. Okay. Some of that involves setting up processes and getting those in place. Some of it involves just working with people and bridging the communication gap. Okay. So as a program manager, I get to oversee a number of projects, and it's exciting work. It's a lot of the same communication drills and helping clarify the vision for where we're going.
Okay. Yeah. So how is that your current role? How is that a good fit for you personally?
Yeah. So I think each step along the way, I've picked up bits and pieces of whether it's managing people, how to lead, how to motivate, how to cajole folks into doing what needs to be done. And so a lot of soft skills that I think, coupled with a lot of what goes on starting here in critical thinking and communication and being able to articulate an idea and clearly present a case for that. So a melding of all that really, it makes up a lot of my day. So a lot of meetings, but if taken in the right light, they're positive meetings, so helping drive that forward.
Okay. Yeah. So you talked about some things that you gained during your PhD training, but what are some things that you needed to learn after your training that you didn't get now that you're in this role?
Yeah, so I think there's communication is a broad one. So here there was a lot of work in clearly articulating and defending your hypothesis. Mm-hmm. I think the biggest sort of continuation of that is how to understand what's motivating people, what really drives them, what the group dynamics are. So there's a much broader and ultimately, I think, critically important aspect of communication that is constantly refined. So it's something that through your whole career, I think, is something that if you're not working on it, you should be, right? The other part, there's some tactical stuff. So in project management, there's some tools, techniques, certifications. So project management professional certification that I think is really helpful in establishing a lexicon that you can talk with other project managers outside of your industry and have a relatable conversation.
Okay. Is that something that current PhD trainees could pursue now? What are some things that they should probably pursue if they're interested in that program management field?
Yeah, so there's a couple different levels of certification, with PMP being the most extensive. But each step has really three components: a experience component, so doing some project management work, and it's pretty loose in terms of how you capture what's project management. There's a didactic component that anyone can take at any time, and then there's a test that proves that you can pull it together. So because you take that doesn't mean you're necessarily a good project manager, but it is a foundational thing that if you're going to transition out of the lab, it's something concrete that you have that shows you have some foundation skills that those without that have a harder time articulating.
Okay, good. So tell me a little bit about networking. I'm sure you do a fair share of that. What does that look like for you, and what are some of your strategies personally?
Yeah, so I think it's critically important, not just for moving along your own career, but also being effective in the role you're in. And it takes on a bunch of different paths and different media. So there's, I think, your very broad network of LinkedIn and others that you can connect to, and there's usually some common theme that you have, but not much else in many cases. And then on the other end of the spectrum, it's the core people you work with or have worked with, and making an effort to stay in touch with them and to stay connected and keep that line of communication open. And then in between there's a whole lot you can do in terms of reaching outside of your comfort zone, outside of your area, outside of your company, and a lot of times people don't realize how purposeful you have to be in making that happen. It doesn't, unless you're a crazy extrovert, it doesn't happen on its own. So it's about setting some goals for yourself in terms of, I'm gonna do 1 or 2 a month. Start small and identify somebody that in an area you might be interested in, or an area you know nothing about, and reach out to them and sort of form the open communication that allow you to go back later. Yeah,
good. Okay, so what do you wish you knew as a grad student that you know now?
Yeah, so 2 things. The first one being to travel as much as you can, because it only gets harder to carve out time to travel and have fun like that. But the more serious side of looking at your career is how to purposefully map it out. Your career is most important to you, and you're the one who should be looking after it and making sure that where some of the areas you want to go, that you ask, what do I need to be competitive or to be considered for those spots? And then being honest with yourself about what you need to do, whether it's volunteering for experience or classwork, or sometimes just putting in the time, talking to others to get a sense of what it is in that field you might be going into. Okay, good.
So final question, what does your work-life balance look like in your role, balancing that with your life, with your work role?
Yeah, so my work-life balance has traditionally been awful, but it's a very personal thing, and I think that's something that I've come to realize is that your work-life balance is going to stay the same as it is until you make an effort to change it. And when it's important enough to you, you'll make those changes. So part of identifying a career, I think, is recognizing what type of personal work-life balance you'll be comfortable with, but will also let you be successful. There are certain careers where you need to be there more than others. You need to be engaged more than others, or you need to be there at night and during the day. And those are all things that I don't think I necessarily considered in detail early on. But whether it's some of the consulting I did and some of the work in Pharma Now, taking different positions, there's always a ramp up, but you need to be comfortable with yourself as to how much time you're putting in and what the trade-off is if you wanted to take more time away from the office or put more time in.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for your time.
Sure.
So glad to have you. Thanks for coming.
No problem. Thanks, Kate.